The stars looked different from Haven. Elder Jack Stone stood at the observation deck, his weathered hands gripping the railing as he gazed at the unfamiliar constellations. At 93, he was one of the few remaining who carried the memory of Earth in his blood, though he himself had never seen humanity's birthplace. His grandfather had been among the last to escape. Telling stories to the void again, Elder? Commander Tom Reed approached quietly, his uniform crisp despite the late hour. Jack smiled without turning. Not stories. Promises. The colony of Haven thrived in a valley surrounded by towering purple mountains. From this height, Jack could see the lights of the city below, a testament to human resilience. What had begun as a desperate outpost of 10,000 survivors had grown into a civilization of millions spread across 3 continents. The council meets at dawn, Tom said. Dr. Miller says she's found something. Jack nodded. Then we shouldn't keep her waiting. The meeting chamber buzzed with tension. 12 leaders sat around a circular table, with Dr. Ann Miller standing at the center. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, her eyes bright with excitement. For 30 years we've been excavating the ruins on the southern continent, she began, activating the holographic display. We always assumed they belonged to Haven's original inhabitants, extinct long before our arrival. We were wrong. The hologram showed a metal vault door, massive, and clearly not of local design. This technology matches nothing in our records, or in Haven's archaeological history, she continued. 3 days ago we opened it. The image changed to show a vast chamber filled with rows of preserved technology. This is a forward base, Anne said, her voice steady but her hands trembling. Slightly. Built by humans from Earth nearly 10,000 years ago. Gasps filled the room. Commander Reed leaned forward. That's impossible. Our history clearly records that Earth was destroyed by an asteroid impact. The evacuation was chaotic. We barely escaped with basic technology. That's what we were told, Anne agreed. But the evidence suggests otherwise. She tapped her console, and new images appeared. Strange ships with weapons pointed at a blue-green planet. These records were preserved inside. Earth wasn't destroyed by a natural disaster. It was attacked and deliberately obliterated by something called the Galactic Council. Silence gripped the chamber. Elder Stone's voice cut through the quiet. My grandfather used to tell me stories passed down through generations. Stories about betrayal, about aliens who feared us, about a promise of return. I always thought they were myths to help children sleep at night. Anne nodded. There's more. The base contains technological blueprints far beyond what we currently possess. It seems our ancestors weren't just refugees. They were preparing. Preparing for what? One of the council members asked. For us, Tom said quietly, understanding dawning on his face. They were preparing for the day when their descendants would be strong enough to return. 3 days later, Commander Reed stood in the ancient vault watching as technicians carefully extracted another piece of equipment from stasis. How much of this can we actually use? He asked Anne, who was cataloging discoveries on her tablet. Most of it is still functional, she replied. The preservation systems were remarkable, but more importantly, we've discovered their research. Our ancestors were developing technologies the Council had forbidden, faster than light travel, energy weapons, even matter manipulation. They feared what humans might become. Tom ran his hand along a metal container marked with Earth's old symbol, and their fear drove them to genocide. Yes, Anne said, but they missed some of us, and now, 9,000 years later, we've advanced far beyond what they could imagine. A young technician approached them carrying a small device. Dr. Miller, we found this in the command center. It seems to be an activation key. Anne took it carefully, examining the intricate patterns etched into the metal. Bring it to the main computer room. The computer core of the ancient base hummed to life, screens illuminating for the first time in millennia. Elder Stone watched. As Anne inserted the activation key, the screens flickered and then a face appeared. A woman wearing an old Earth military uniform, her eyes tired but determined. This is Admiral Helena Stone of Earth Defense Force. Final message. The woman's voice echoed through the chamber. If you're seeing this, you are our descendants and you've found one of our forward bases. Earth is lost. The Galactic Council voted for our extinction, fearing our potential and our rapid advancement. They could not control us, so they destroyed us. Jack felt his heart race. Helena Stone, his ancestor, his blood. We managed to save some of our people. The recording continued. Scattered across the stars, hidden from the Council's sight. We've seeded bases like this one throughout unexplored space, each containing the knowledge and technology they tried to erase. They think humanity is extinct. Let them keep thinking that. The Admiral's expression hardened. But know this, we do not forgive, and we do not forget. Within this base is everything you need to rebuild, to advance, and one day, to return. When you are ready, when you are strong, reclaim what was taken from us. Bring fire to those who sought our extinction. The message ended, leaving them in stunned silence. My grandfather always ended his stories the same way, Jack finally said, his voice thick with emotion. From the ashes we will rise, and we will return with fire. Now I understand what he meant. 6 months later, Commander Reed stood on the bridge of the Haven's first interstellar warship, the Phoenix. Below, in the massive underground hangar, 5 more ships were nearing completion, built with the knowledge from the ancient base. Navigation systems online, reported the young officer at the controls. Stealth technology functioning at optimal levels. Tom nodded. And the special package? Secure in the hold, sir. Dr. Miller says the fire protocol is ready for deployment, if needed. Elder Jack Stone entered the bridge, moving slowly but with purpose. In his hands he carried a small metal container. A gift for your journey, he said, presenting it to Tom. Earth soil, passed down through my family for 9,000 years. When you find the Council, let them know whose world they destroyed. Tom accepted the container with reverence. We'll make our ancestors proud. Remember, Jack said, his eyes bright with unshed tears, this isn't about vengeance. It's about justice. Show them that humanity survived, that we thrived, and that we remember. As the Phoenix prepared for its maiden voyage, Haven's citizens gathered to watch. They were no longer refugees hiding from a past they didn't understand. They were the children of Earth, and they were returning to the stars that had once been their home. With fire, the Phoenix glided silently through the darkness of space, its stealth systems cloaking it from the sensors of the small outpost hanging in orbit around a pale blue gas giant. For 3 months, the human vessel had traveled through uncharted territory, mapping Council space and gathering intelligence. Commander Tom Reed stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back as he studied the alien station. The design matched perfectly with the records found in the ancient base, curved organic shapes that seemed to grow out of a central core. After 9,000 years, the Council's architectural style had barely changed. All systems ready, sir, reported his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kate Brown. We can maintain stealth for another 6 hours before needing to recharge. Tom nodded. And our guest? Waiting in his quarters. He seems anxious. As he should be, Tom replied. It's not every day you reveal to an entire galactic civilization that the species they thought they exterminated is very much alive. Paul Reed had lived among aliens for 27 years. As one of Haven's deep-cover operatives, he had undergone extensive surgery to pass as a Teleran, a near-human species from the outer reaches of Council space. His blue-tinted skin and slightly enlarged eyes had become as familiar to him as his original appearance. He adjusted his formal Council robes, examining his reflection. Today would be his last day as Delegate Paulus. Today humanity would step out of the shadows. A chime at his door announced Commander Reed's arrival. Despite their shared surname, they were not related. Reed had been a common name among the survivors, a coincidence that sometimes caused confusion. Are you ready? Tom asked, entering the room. Paul gestured to his alien appearance. I've been ready for almost 3 decades. My only regret is that I won't see their faces when I reveal myself. You'll see plenty, Tom assured him. We'll be monitoring the entire exchange. Paul took a deep breath. The outpost commander is named Dorn. He's young for his position, not particularly bright but well-connected. His father sits on the lesser council. Perfect, Tom said with a satisfied smile. The message will travel quickly then. Outpost Commander Dorn was having a boring shift. Monitoring the gas mining operations around Sector 12B was hardly the prestigious assignment he had hoped for, despite his father's influence. He lazily scrolled through production reports, not bothering to read the details. The communication alert startled him from his boredom. "Commander," called his sensor officer, "we're receiving a transmission request from an unregistered vessel. It just appeared on our scans." Dorn frowned. "Smugglers, most likely. Tell them to identify themselves or face impoundment." "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies using Council diplomatic codes. Old ones, but valid." Now fully alert, Dorn straightened his uniform. "Put them through." The view screen flickered to life, showing a blue-skinned Teleran in formal diplomatic robes. Dorn recognized him immediately. "Delegate Paulus? What are you doing out here, and on an unregistered vessel?" The Teleran smiled. "Commander Dorn, I bring greetings from a civilization long thought extinct. I am here to formally announce our return to galactic affairs and request an audience with the Grand Council." Dorn blinked in confusion. "What civilization?" "Your credentials clearly state you're from the Teleran Alliance." "My credentials," Paulus said, "are as false as my appearance." Before Dorn's eyes, the diplomat reached up and touched a small device behind his ear. His blue skin began to fade, revealing a more pinkish tone underneath. The enlarged eyes shrank. Slightly and subtle changes rippled across his features. "My name is Paul Reed," he said, his voice now missing the slight musical quality of Teleran speech. "I am human, and I am not alone." Dorn's mouth fell open. "Impossible," he whispered. "Humans are extinct. The Great Cleansing failed," Paul interrupted. "And now, 9,000 years later, we would like to discuss reparations." The view screen expanded to show the bridge of the Phoenix, where Commander Tom Reed and his human crew stood in their distinctive uniforms. Behind them, through the viewport, 5 more massive ships decloaked, appearing as if by magic. "This is Commander Reed of the Human Restoration Fleet," Tom announced. "We come in peace, for now." News of the human return spread through Council, space faster than any official communication ever had. Within hours, emergency sessions were being called on 100 worlds. Within days, the Grand Council itself convened for the first time in nearly a century. Grand Councilor Marn, a tall, thin being with translucent skin that revealed the complex network of glowing veins beneath, addressed the assembled representatives. "Let us be clear." His voice boomed through the chamber. "If these are indeed humans, a claim we have not verified, then they are the descendants of criminals. The historical records are unambiguous. The species displayed dangerous aggressive tendencies and refused to accept council authority over weapons development." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices until a sharp tone brought silence. "I have studied the transcripts of the human delegation's communication," continued Marn. "They speak of reparations and justice for actions taken by our ancestors 9 millennia ago. They have infiltrated our society, placed spies among us, and now appear with warships at our borders. These are not the actions of a peaceful civilization." A younger council member stood. "But what if we were wrong? The Great Cleansing has been a stain on our history. Many modern scholars question." "Questioning the past is a luxury for stable times," Marn interrupted. "We face a crisis now. These beings must be contained while we determine their intentions." Back on the Phoenix, Commander Reed watched the Council's deliberations through the feed provided by their network of spies. The old anger burned in his chest as he listened to Marn speak about containing humanity. Again. "They haven't changed. At all," he said quietly. Admiral Gray, who had arrived with the rest of the fleet, nodded in agreement. 9,000 years and they're still afraid of us. Still want to control us. "Should we proceed to Phase 2? asked Lieutenant Brown. Tom considered the question. Phase 2 would demonstrate human technological superiority in a way the Council couldn't ignore. It would involve disabling a Council military installation without causing casualties. A show, a force designed to open diplomatic channels from a position of strength. Yes, he decided. Select the target we discussed, the orbital defense platform near the Krell homeworld. Sir, said the communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from Haven. Elderstone wishes to speak with you. Tom frowned. Haven was light years away. They shouldn't have been able to communicate this quickly unless... Put him through, he ordered. Jack Stone's face appeared on the screen, clear as if he were standing on the bridge. I see Dr. Miller's quantum communicator works perfectly, the old man observed with a smile. Another technology the Council banned, Tom replied. What's happened? We've opened more vaults, Jack said, his eyes bright with excitement. Tom, we found them. The fire protocols, the real ones. What we have aboard your ships is just a fraction of what our ancestors created. Tom felt a chill run down his spine. How powerful? Powerful enough to rewrite the terms of our return, Jack said. Powerful enough to make sure the Council never threatens humanity again. Behind Elderstone, Tom could see Dr. Miller working, with a team around a massive piece of machinery that glowed with an inner light that looked like a miniature sun. Proceed with Phase 2, Jack instructed. Show them our resolve, then tell them we're coming home, to Earth. What's left of it belongs to us, and we intend to reclaim it. As the transmission ended, Tom turned to his crew. You heard the Elder. Let's show the Council what 9,000 years of human innovation looks like. The Phoenix and its sister ships engaged their engines, leaving the outpost behind. The first test of human fire was about to begin. The galactic hub floated like a jewel against the backdrop of space, its vast spiral arms extending from a central sphere. For 9,000 years it had served as the seat of Council power, where decisions affecting thousands of worlds were made. Never in its long history had it faced a situation like this. Ambassador Lisa West stood at the viewport of her shuttle, studying the hub as they approached. Despite their military advantage, humanity had chosen to engage diplomatically, at least for now. Impressive, isn't it? Said Security Chief Ward, joining her. His hand rested casually on his sidearm, a habit formed from years of training. Hard to believe our ancestors once stood here as equals, Lisa nodded. And harder still to believe they left here condemned to extinction. Their shuttle docked at a private bay, away from the curious eyes of other species. News of humanity's return had spread throughout Council space, creating a mix of fear, fascination, and in some quarters, hope. Remember, Lisa told her team as they prepared to disembark, we're not here for revenge. We're here for recognition, reparation, and respect. The 3 R's. And if they refuse? Asked Ward. Lisa's expression hardened. Then they'll face the 4th R, retribution. Council historian Ben was not like other Deltans. Where most of his kind pursued careers in commerce or the arts, he had dedicated his life to studying the darker chapters of Council history. For decades, he had researched the Great Cleansing, piecing together fragments of evidence that suggested a different story than the official version. The humans' return vindicated his work, but it also terrified him. He hurried through the hub's vast archives, his 6-fingered hands trembling as he accessed restricted files. The emergency session would begin in hours, and he needed proof before then. Proof that might prevent another catastrophe. Still chasing ghosts, Ben? The voice made him jump. Grand Counselor Marn stood in the doorway, his translucent skin pulsing, with bioluminescent veins, a sign of agitation among his people. Not ghosts anymore, Ben replied, straightening. They've returned, just as my research suggested they might. Marn glided forward. Your research bordered on treason. Questioning the wisdom of the Council's past decisions was necessary, Ben interrupted. The archives contain evidence that Earth's destruction wasn't unanimous. 7 species voted against it, including my own. The humans were developing quickly, yes, but they showed no aggression toward the Council until we moved against them. Ancient history, Marn dismissed. What matters now is containing the threat. Ben's four eyes narrowed. That thinking caused this situation in the first place. Perhaps it's time for a different approach. As Marn left, Ben returned to his search with renewed urgency. In the oldest section of the archives, behind layers of security, he finally found what he sought, the original unaltered recordings of the vote that condemned Earth. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. The decision hadn't been about protection at all. It had been about power. The council chamber hummed with nervous energy as representatives from 100 species took their seats. At the center, a special delegation area had been prepared for the humans, isolated and surrounded by subtle security measures. Ambassador Lisa West entered with her team, her head held high despite the whispers and stares. She wore a simple white uniform adorned only with a small pin, the ancient symbol of Earth. Grand Counselor Marn called the session to order. We are gathered to address the unexpected appearance of those claiming to be descendants of the human species. Before we proceed, we must verify these claims. Lisa stepped forward. Our DNA should be sufficient proof, Counselor Marn, but perhaps this will be more convincing. She nodded to Chief Ward, who activated a holographic display. Above the chamber appeared Earth as it had been 9,000 years ago. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. The image shifted to show massive council ships firing upon the planet, the surface burning as the atmosphere was stripped away. These are your own records, Lisa said calmly. Recovered from our forward bases, the ones your ancestors failed to find when they tried to erase us from existence. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Many younger representatives had never seen the actual footage of Earth's destruction, only read the sanitized accounts. Marn's skin pulsed rapidly. These records were sealed for security reasons. How convenient, Lisa replied. Just as it's convenient that your official history portrays humans as dangerous aggressors who needed to be eliminated for the greater good. We've come to correct that narrative. She gestured, and the hologram changed to show a new image, a devastated barren Earth, and beside it, plans for its restoration. We request formal admission to the Council, acknowledgement of the crimes committed against our species and the return of Earth system to human control, Lisa announced. In exchange, we offer peace and technological cooperation. Cooperation? Marn scoffed. You arrive with warships at our borders, disable one of our defense platforms without warning, and speak of cooperation? We disabled your weapons without causing a single casualty, Lisa corrected. A courtesy your ancestors did not extend to ours. At that moment, Council Historian Ben burst into the chamber, clutching a data crystal. Counselors, I have evidence that must be heard. As Ben presented his discoveries, the chamber grew increasingly chaotic. The unaltered records showed that Earth had been destroyed, not because humans were dangerous, but because they had developed technologies that threatened the Council's economic control, particularly in energy production and faster-than-light travel. For 9 millennia, Ben concluded, we've taught our children that humans were monsters who needed to be destroyed. We've made them into demons in our mythology, all to hide a genocide motivated by greed and fear of competition. Many counselors looked stunned. Others seemed unsurprised, suggesting they had known parts of the truth all along. Lisa watched the proceedings with a calculated expression. This revelation wasn't unexpected. Their spies had suggested divisions within the Council. Now those divisions would work to humanity's advantage. What technologies do humans possess now? Asked a representative from a younger species. If you survived and thrived in isolation, surely you've developed beyond what our ancestors feared. Lisa smiled slightly. We could demonstrate, but I'm not sure this chamber would survive the experience. The implied threat hung in the air. Perhaps, Lisa continued, a more controlled demonstration is in order. With your permission, we would like to show you a small fraction of what we call the fire protocol. Before Marn could object, she nodded to Chief Ward, who pressed a small device. Throughout the chamber, every piece of technology, from personal communicators to the grand displays, went dark for precisely 3 seconds. When they reactivated, each screen showed the same image. Earth as it was before destruction, with the words "Remember" pulsing gently beneath. A simple electromagnetic pulse customized to affect only Council technology, Lisa explained. Completely harmless. The next level is somewhat less benign. The chamber erupted into shouts and arguments. Marn called desperately for order, but the Council was splitting before his eyes. In the chaos, Ben approached Lisa. "You knew the truth all along," he said quietly. "Why request admission to a council you know was corrupt?" Lisa's gaze remained fixed on the panicking representatives. "Because, Historian Ben, sometimes the best way to change a system is from within, and sometimes the best revenge is forcing your enemy to welcome you with open arms." Later, in their private quarters, Lisa met with her team and established a secure connection to Commander Reed. "Phase 3 complete," she reported. "The Council is divided. Several younger species are openly supporting our claims, and even some of the founding races are distancing themselves from the original decision." "And Marn?" asked Tom. "Desperately trying to maintain control but losing influence by the hour. His own people are calling for an investigation into his family's role in the Great Cleansing." Tom nodded, satisfied. "Good. Maintain pressure. Admiral, Gray has positioned our fleet near the remains of Earth. We begin Phase 4 tomorrow." "The fire protocol?" Lisa asked, her voice dropping slightly. "Just the first stage," Tom confirmed. "It's time to show them what happens when you give humans 9,000 years to nurture a grudge." As the connection ended, Lisa looked out at the galactic hub. Soon, very soon, the balance of power would shift. Humanity wouldn't just rejoin the galactic community. They would reshape it. And it would all begin with fire. General Sam Hill stood on the command deck of the Redemption, the largest vessel in the human fleet. Through the massive viewport, he could see the dead world that had once been Earth. 9,000 years of cosmic radiation had scoured its surface, clean of the apocalypse that had ended all life there. What remained was a barren rock, its oceans long evaporated, its atmosphere thin and toxic. "Beautiful, isn't it?" asked High Admiral Davis, joining him at the viewport. Sam raised an eyebrow. "Beautiful, it's a graveyard." "Not for long," Davis replied, her eyes reflecting the pale light of Earth's moon. "For 9,000 years we've carried the memory of this place in our hearts. Now we carry the means to bring it back to life." Below them, on the ship's cargo level, Dr. Miller's team was making final preparations. The fire protocol wasn't just a weapon. It was restoration and rebirth rolled into one terrible package. "The Council fleet has changed course," reported the sensor officer. "They're heading this way. Estimated arrival, 6 hours." Sam nodded. "Right on schedule. They took the bait." When Ambassador West had revealed humanity's plans to reclaim Earth, the Council had predictably dispatched their largest battle group to intercept. What they didn't know was that this was exactly what the humans wanted. "Begin deployment," ordered Admiral Davis. "General Hill, your ground teams are cleared to land." Sam turned to his staff. "You heard the Admiral. Operation Phoenix is now active." On the Council flagship, Grand Counselor Marn paced anxiously. The decision to send their fleet had been controversial, with many representatives arguing for continued diplomacy. But Marn had convinced enough of them that the humans' plan to restore Earth represented an unacceptable threat. "We cannot allow them to deploy unknown technology in the heart of Council space," he had argued. "Whatever this fire protocol is, it could destabilize the entire region." In truth, Marn's motivations were more personal. His family's fortune had been built on technologies confiscated during the Great Cleansing. If humans returned in force, those historical claims might be investigated. "Counselor," called the fleet commander, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from the human ships. They appear to be deploying devices to Earth's surface." Marn's translucent skin pulsed with alarm. "How many ships do they have in the system?" "Only 6 that we can detect," the commander replied. "Our fleet outnumbers them 10 to 1. Don't underestimate them," Marn warned. 9,000 years of isolation has made them unpredictable. Order the fleet to maximum speed. We must stop whatever they're doing. On Earth's surface, Sam's team worked quickly to install the devices Dr. Miller had created. Each one was roughly the size of a small car, with a glowing blue core surrounded by intricate machinery. "Deployment at Site 1 complete," reported Team Leader Jones over the comm. "Moving to Site 2. Sam acknowledged from his command shuttle hovering above the dead landscape. Through his viewport, he could see the first device beginning to pulse, sending ripples of blue energy into the ground around it. "General," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from a ship that just entered the system. They're identifying themselves as the Resistance." Sam frowned. This wasn't part of the plan. "Put them through." The view screen showed a mixed crew of various alien species. Their leader stepped forward, a tall, four-armed being with mottled skin. "General Hill, I am Resistance Leader Mark," he said in careful human language. "My people and many others have fought council, oppression for centuries. When we heard humans had returned, we came to offer our support." Sam studied the alien carefully. Intelligence reports had mentioned dissident factions within council space, but direct contact had not been established. "Your support is appreciated, but this operation is delicate," Sam replied. "What exactly are you offering?" Mark's four hands made a complex gesture. "Information. The council fleet approaching isn't coming to negotiate. They've activated weapon systems normally reserved for planetary bombardment." Sam's blood ran cold. "They would destroy Earth again. There's nothing left to destroy." "They fear what you might create more than what already exists," Mark explained. "We can help delay them. My ship carries a council identification beacon. We can confuse their approach." After a moment's consideration, Sam nodded. "Very well. Coordinate with my tactical officer. But understand this. If you betray us, you'll be the first to witness what the fire protocol can really do." As the council fleet approached Earth, chaos erupted in their formation. Sensor readings became scrambled, communication channels filled with static, and navigation systems showed conflicting data. "What is happening?" demanded Marn. "Unknown, Counselor," replied the increasingly frustrated commander. "It appears to be some form of electronic warfare. Our systems can't penetrate it. On the tactical display, the human ships appeared to multiply, with dozens of ghost images appearing and disappearing. Targeting computers failed to lock onto any consistent signature." "Launch fighters," ordered the commander. "They can rely on visual confirmation." But as the fighters deployed, a new phenomenon appeared. Surrounding Earth, a shimmering field of energy began to form, connecting the devices the humans had planted. On the surface, "Counselor," called the science officer, voice trembling, "you need to see this." The main screen showed Earth's surface beginning to glow. Around each device, the barren ground was changing. Where there had been only dust and rock, patches of green were spreading outward at an impossible rate. "What are we witnessing?" whispered Marn. Aboard the Redemption, High Admiral Davis watched with satisfaction as the fire protocol activated its first phase. The devices were working exactly as Dr. Miller had promised, using the stored energy of a manufactured star to accelerate cellular growth and atmospheric regeneration. "Admiral," reported her aide, "the Council fleet has stalled at the outer defense perimeter. General Hill reports that all devices are online and functioning at optimal levels." Davis nodded. "And the Resistance ships?" "Performing as agreed. They're jamming Council communications and providing false sensor readings." "Perfect. Signal Ambassador West. Tell her it's time for the final act of our diplomatic play." On the Galactic Hub, Ambassador Lisa West stood before an emergency session of the Council. The chamber's displays showed live footage of Earth where the transformation was accelerating. Rivers were forming in ancient dried riverbeds, plants were spreading across the surface, and the thin atmosphere was visibly thickening. "This is the true fire protocol," Lisa announced to the stunned representatives. "Not a weapon of destruction, but of creation. For 9,000 years we've developed technology the Council feared. The ability to terraform dead worlds into living ones in a matter of days rather than centuries." She gestured to the displays, where the glowing blue energy now covered nearly half the planet. "What you're witnessing is controlled stellar fusion, harnessing the power of a star to accelerate life rather than destroy it. Council historian Ben stepped forward. The ancient records spoke of human research into solar manipulation. This is what they meant. Yes, Lisa confirmed. Technology the Council banned because it would have made their control of habitable worlds meaningless. Any species could have claimed any dead rock and transformed it into a paradise. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as representatives grasped the implications. The Council's power had always rested on controlling access to habitable worlds. But why return to Earth, asked one representative. Why not simply use this technology on other planets? Lisa's expression hardened. Because Earth is ours, and because we wanted you to witness what you destroyed. What could have been shared with all species had the Council chosen cooperation instead of genocide? On the displays, the transformation continued unabated. Where the Council fleet had come to prevent a weapons deployment, they now bore witness to a miracle. Earth was being reborn before their eyes, and humanity's fire, long thought extinguished, now burned brighter than ever before. The light of a reborn sun shone down on Earth's surface. Where once there had been only barren rock, now seas glimmered blue against continents lush with new growth. The atmosphere, thick and breathable, carried the scent of soil and plant life. Smells that had not existed on this world for 9 millennia. Commander Tom Reed stood on a grassy hill overlooking what ancient maps had once called the Mediterranean. Behind him, the Phoenix rested on landing struts, its crew working to establish the first permanent human settlement on their ancestral homeworld. Hard to believe it's the same planet, said Admiral Gray, joining him. When I first saw it 3 weeks ago, it was nothing but dust and stone. Tom nodded. Dr. Miller's fire protocol exceeded even her expectations. The terraforming is nearly 80% complete. Below them, teams of scientists moved across the landscape, collecting samples and taking readings. The planet's rebirth was happening at an astonishing pace. What should have taken centuries was unfolding in days. Plants grew visibly, oceans filled by the hour, and the once toxic atmosphere sweetened with each passing minute. And the Council? Asked Tom. Still in complete disarray, Gray replied with a hint of satisfaction. Their fleet remains in orbit but purely as observers now. The vote to recognize our claim to Earth passed yesterday. Tom's gaze drifted to the sky, where the Council's massive ships could be seen as distant silver specks. Not that they had much choice. Hard to argue with a species that can rebirth a planet. Commander, called a young officer approaching rapidly up the hill. Ambassador West's shuttle has entered the atmosphere. The Council delegation is with her. Tom straightened his uniform. Then it's time for the final act. The landing site had been prepared carefully. A simple platform of polished stone stood at the center of a wide meadow. No weapons were visible, though security teams watched vigilantly from a distance. This moment had been planned for generations, the formal return of humanity to the galactic stage. Ambassador Lisa West led the procession of Council representatives. At her side walked Council historian Ben, who had become an unexpected ally. Behind them came Grand Counselor Marn, his translucent skin dimmed with what might have been shame, and representatives from 20 other species. Elder Jack Stone awaited them at the platform. Despite his age, he had insisted on making the journey from Haven to witness this moment. Dr. Ann Miller stood beside him, datapad in hand as she monitored the ongoing terraforming process. Welcome to Earth, Jack said simply as the delegation approached. Welcome to the home we have reclaimed. Marn stepped forward, his movement stiff. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally acknowledge humanity's sovereignty over the Sol system and recognize Earth as your ancestral homeworld. The words seemed to pain him physically. The Council extends an invitation for humanity to take its place as a full member species. Jack looked at the Grand Counselor for a long moment. 9,000 years of exile and preparation had led to this moment. Generations had lived and died dreaming of this day, when those who had tried to erase humanity would be forced to welcome them back. We accept, Jack said finally. But with conditions. From a small container he removed a handful of soil, The same earth soil that had been preserved since the Great Cleansing, passed down through his family line. He let it fall through his fingers onto the new ground beneath them. The first condition, truth. The Council will acknowledge the true history of the Great Cleansing in all official records. Future generations will know that Earth was destroyed, not because humans were dangerous, but because we threatened your monopolies. Marn's skin pulsed, but he nodded reluctantly. Second, reform. The Council's structure will be reorganized to prevent any future genocide. No species shall be denied membership based on their technological development. That would fundamentally alter the balance of power, Marn began. Yes, interrupted Jack. It would. That's the point. Council historian Ben stepped forward. Many Council members already support such reforms, Councillor Marn. The younger species especially. Marn looked around at the transformed landscape, proof of what human technology could accomplish, and yielded. The Council will consider these reforms. The HFY Council will implement these reforms, corrected Tom, speaking for the first time, or humanity will share the fire protocol with every non-Council world on the galactic rim. The threat didn't need elaboration. If every marginalized species suddenly gained the ability to create habitable worlds, the Council's power would collapse. Overnight. And the third condition? Asked Marn, his voice barely audible. Jack's aged face softened slightly. Peace. Genuine, lasting peace. What happened to Earth will never happen again. To any world, the technology that restored our home can heal others. We offer this as our contribution to a new galactic order. 1 month later, Commander Reed stood in the newly constructed Memorial Hall in what had once been a place called Geneva. Through the vast windows, he could see the rebuilt city taking shape as colonists from Haven established their new home. It's strange, said Dr. Miller, joining him. For generations we prepared for war. We built weapons, trained soldiers, nurtured our anger, and in the end, our greatest weapon wasn't destruction at all. Tom nodded. Creation always was more powerful. Our ancestors understood that. It's why they preserved the terraforming technology instead of building planet killers. The hall filled slowly with humans and aliens alike. The first joint session of the Reformed Council was about to begin, with Earth serving as its temporary headquarters while the hub was restructured. Elder Jack Stone would preside, his lifetime of leadership culminating in this moment. Resistance. Leader Mark approached them, his forearms making the gesture of respect. My people thank you. Already the fire protocol has begun restoring worlds damaged by Council exploitation. Planets thought ruined forever will soon support life again. That was always the plan, replied Tom. Not just to reclaim our home, but to ensure no species would ever face extinction again. Above the hall, a great dome opened to reveal the sky. The sun, Earth's sun, shone down upon the assembly as Jack Stone took his place at the center. 9,000 years ago, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. A great wrong was committed. A species was nearly erased from existence because they dared to innovate beyond the boundaries set by others. He paused, looking around at the gathered representatives. Today we do not merely correct that wrong. We transform it into something better. The fire that has restored Earth is the same fire that burns in all sentient beings. The desire to grow, to build, to create. From this day forward, that fire will not be feared or suppressed, but shared and celebrated. As if in response to his words, the final phase of the fire protocol activated. High above, Earth's atmosphere shimmered with a brief aurora, the last adjustments completing the planet's rebirth. Commander Tom Reed watched the spectacle with a complex mixture of emotions. Vindication, yes, but also something unexpected. Hope. The mission that had guided humanity for 9,000 years was complete. Earth was restored. The Council was reformed. Justice had been achieved. But this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. As the aurora faded, leaving behind a perfectly blue sky, Tom thought of all those generations who had kept the flame of memory alive, who had passed down the soil of Earth from hand to hand, who had never forgotten their origins, Even as they built new homes among distant stars, they had returned with fire, not to burn but to illuminate, to light a new path forward for all species. And Earth, once dead, now lived again.